This episode is brought to you by Shopify. Forget the frustration of picking commerce platforms when you switch your business to Shopify, the global commerce platform that supercharges your selling wherever you sell. With Shopify, you'll harness the same intuitive features, trusted apps, and powerful analytics used by the world's leading brands. Sign up today for your $1 per month trial period at shopify.com/tech, all lowercase. That's shopify.com/tech.
When you need mealtime inspiration, it's worth shopping Baker's, where you'll find over 30,000 mouth-watering choices that excite your inner foodie. And no matter what tasty choice you make, you'll enjoy our everyday low prices, plus extra ways to save, like digital coupons worth over $600 each week. You can also save up to $1 off per gallon at the pump with fuel points. More savings and more inspiring flavors make shopping Baker's worth it every time. Baker's, fresh for everyone. Fuel restrictions apply.
Okay, everybody, welcome to the latest episode of All Too Real 2. My name is Michael E. Cullen II, and with me, as always, is...
Sesame fake news. Don't publish articles from known liars just because they make you laugh and you feel entertained by them, and or you feel pity towards them because they act like a little kid who's gotten in trouble for stealing from a cookie jar in Carta.
That's a very long name. It sounds kind of made up, though.
It's pretty much entirely made up, about 99%.
Oh, okay. So, should I believe anything you say from here on out?
There really is a Sesame fake news in Carter, though. I've spoken to him about a million times that he stopped talking to me. He was so mad about an article I wrote about him. So I had my brother pose as him by creating a fake email address and then corresponded with me pretending to be him so that it looked like there was like a real correspondence between two people. Well, it was two real people, but one of the people was pretending to be someone. So technically two people.
So were they both Sesame and Carta? I'm confused.
No, one of them was commissioned, I guess, by Sesame and Carta.
Okay.
I guess that would be the most accurate.
So should I believe that you are really Sesame and Carta, or am I talking to like a fake person?
No, I wouldn't trust. No, I wouldn't.
Have I been lied to all these years as we've done this podcast?
Yes.
Do I need to find a new co-host?
Probably. But you're not going to find anyone as manic and as chaotic as me. So
that's true. So I guess I'll stick with you, you know.
Yeah. With that one.
Yeah.
Oh, God.
So, today on the show, we're doing something interesting. So once upon a time, we used to have another podcast that this one is a sequel to. The original one was called All Too Real. There was no 2 involved. Yep. And we primarily just covered movies based on true stories and then discussed like what was real in the movie, what was made up, and, you know, things of that nature. And the first episode we ever did was for this movie called Shattered Glass that came out in 2003. That's like based on a true story. And we've decided that, hey, it's been like 6 or so years later, we're going to recover that episode, that show, but that movie, not the show, but the movie that we covered in that show years ago. So that's the deal for tonight, folks, or today or this morning or whenever you're listening to this. Hope you enjoy it. If you want to listen to our original episode, you can find All Too Real where you stream your podcasts, I'm sure. But we haven't updated it in a long time because we stopped doing it. So so that episode might be there too. So if you're interested after listening to this one to see, what we've changed, what we haven't in 6 years, because I don't remember covering it. I remember covering it, but I don't remember recording it. So, do not know what we said. I haven't listened to it since I edited it. So yeah.
Yeah, please don't shred it because it was our very first episode. We were very nervous. I remember exactly what happened before. So, which is weird, and I think this is what gave me the idea, is because it was right after we saw Once Over at their reunion concert in May of 2018. It was supposed to commemorate the 14-year the 14-year anniversary of their album These Precious Days came out in 2004. So then we went afterwards, after the concert being all amped up and shit, and we thought, yeah, it looks great, let's go record a podcast with all this energy just flowing out of me, which is so, because you know me, right? You know me, I'm in my best form when I'm already super amped up, and my opinions are just going to be so good at that point, right? And like when I express myself, it's going to be so eloquent, right? Of course. And
or if you express yourself, because I don't know which you I'm talking to.
Oh, right, exactly. I could be Sesame or Stephen Glass or whatever. So anyway, so last week I saw Once Over play again, another reunion concert that they played since the last one, which was 6 years ago.
Yeah.
And I think maybe that's what gave me the idea of like, oh, what if we did Shattered Glass again, because it was right after the Once Over in this case a week after.
But that makes sense. It's a good thought.
So if you do listen to our old episode, please, don't be too critical of it, because you probably have me going 5,000 times in it, and being saying constantly,
but that's okay. That's okay. That's good.
It is okay.
First
episode.
Anyway, so we do other things that are annoying now, so it's okay, So
it's true. Yeah, we just move on to different ticks, Yeah. Stuff like that.
like you do. So a little bit background on this movie. It was directed by Billy Ray, who was also written by Billy Ray, not Billy Ray Cyrus. It's based on an article by Buzz Bissinger as H.G. Bissinger. It stars Hayden Christensen as Stephen Glass, Peter Sarsgaard as Charles Chuck Lane, Chloë Sevigny as Caitlin Avery, Rosario Dawson as Andy Fox, Melanie Lynskey as Amy Brand, Hank Azaria as Michael Kelly, Steve Zahn as Adam Penenberg, among other people. So, it's a large cast. So, but your primary stars of this, your antagonist and protagonist and all that good stuff are Peter Sarsgaard and Hayden Christensen here as Chuck Lane and Stephen Glass. Stephen Glass was, or he still is, a human being. He wrote for the New Republic magazine from 1995 until 1998, when it was revealed that many of his published articles were fabrications. And he was fired, and they had to release an apology and all this other stuff, and basically it destroyed his journalism career. He also wrote for magazines such as George and Rolling Stone and Harper's, and contributed to Public Radio International on This American Life. So his stink is all over all those publications.
Damn, that's great. I didn't know about the last one.
So what do you want to cover here today? I don't think we need to break down the whole movie, do you?
No, not really. Just we could break down a little bit of it, but just, I don't know, kind of maybe our overall feelings of it, and also state of news and commentary in the world of whether things have gotten better when it comes to false information 6 years ago when we first reviewed this movie, or if things have gotten worse
or in the 21 years since it came out.
Right. Exactly. So there's a lot of things we could spin this, if you will, spinning it.
So
because,
first off, the first thing I want to ask you is, do you think the movie still holds up?
Oh, absolutely. This is one of my favorite movies of all time. I don't watch it very often, but when I do, I usually watch it 5 times in a row in a 3-day time span. No, totally. It's just very well written, very well acted. The humor is kind of universal. There's not a whole lot of jokes that you would only understand.
Yeah, and I mean, it's not like it's a comedy per se either. So I find it like a thriller. Actually, it starts out kind of an upbeat movie, and then it kind of delves into thriller territory after that. It's almost like a horror movie in certain ways. So
it is. It's extremely scary at some points. When you just see this guy's world world just closing in on him. And like I think I could have sworn that like even like physically the movie got darker throughout the movie, like color wise.
It did.
Like,
They also changed the cinematography halfway through the movie.
Okay.
Which is something I noticed more this time than I ever had before. At the beginning of the movie, it's very handheld and free, like upbeat, like kind of camera movements. Like, you know, it's just kind of like nothing's on like what they call sticks, you know, like on a tripod or anything, or any kind of like, you know, dolly or anything that kind of keeps it steady. You got kind of like a movement to every shot, and then at a certain point when things start to unravel, it gets more steady, which you would think it would be the opposite way, but it works for this because that's when things get more serious, so you kind of have to have this more serious look to your camera. So it's interesting.
Right. It is very interesting. That's one of the beauties of filmmaking. It's just like with any other art form, like, you know, with music and stuff, you know, which is my specialty, is like, you know, you pick up these little nuances that maybe like, you know, the untrained ear wouldn't really hear, like a tiny little synth pad note in the background that's just barely noticeable, or, you know, or this thing moved into the left ear, you know, for like a sort of like fading into the left or right ear. So like with movies and stuff too, the same thing happens. These little cool little things that happen. Yeah, and it's really interesting when you notice it, and then you realize that this was an obvious choice by the cinematographer and director to do this. You know, it's just really cool. So what's the basic plot here? I'll give you really quick what the Internet Movie Database summary is. They say the story of a young journalist who fell from grace when it was discovered he fabricated over half of his articles from the publication The New Republic magazine. That's the breakdown. That's it. That's the whole. No.
Yeah.
That's the whole story. No, it's a little bit deeper than that. So basically, Stephen Glass is a compulsive liar. I wouldn't be surprised if he was actually diagnosed with that disorder by a psychiatrist by now, but who knows, you know. And so he kind of got like a rush out of like making up stories, because like he easily could have just done some research and wrote a true story, because in fact some of the stories he did write were actually real things, you know.
Or he could have gone a different angle and become a fiction writer.
He could have become a fiction writer. He even could have become a fiction writer that was pretending to tell a real story, but it was also known from the beginning that it was fiction. Yeah, if that makes any sense. Like a
historic,
there was this dude,
like historical fiction or something almost.
Yeah, he could have done that, because there was this dude who wrote an article, I think it was in 2017, about Putin, and how like he met him when he was like a KGB agent, like his first years, like being 18 years old, and he was playing like a Pink Floyd song in a bar, and you know, all this stuff, and they became friends, and he was like, you know, I really want to get out of this life, but my family won't let me, and my country won't let me, so I got to go back and become a KGB. It was a really long article. I thought it was true for like, until I got to the end of the article, and it said like all of this was fiction or something like that. I was like, God damn it.
But yeah, it's interesting. Yeah. So what's the basic rundown of the movie, really quick? And I mean, a quick synopsis here.
Quick. So basically, he's like the star kid. But they keep referring to him as a kid. He's like 25 years old at this point. So whatever.
Well, it's still young in the business. Yeah,
it is. But the way they work.
But also the median age of the writers at that magazine was like in their 20s. So I think the median age was like 20s to 30s or something at that time. So yeah.
Right. So yeah, he started off young. He was probably like maybe like 22, 21 years old, which is pretty young, I guess, starting at the major. I mean, so all the kids out there, the people who are like younger than 40 years old. So newspapers and magazines used to be these things where you would actually pick up with your hands, and you would either buy a subscription to them, like as like a monthly thing, or you could just buy an individual, you know, magazine in here or there, and you read those magazines, and then you put them down or put them somewhere else in your home or whatever, maybe throw them away or give them to someone else. But nowadays, everything is online, which we'll come to later, because very interesting of the dynamics of online journalism versus print journalism in this movie.
Yeah,
and which one was to be superior to the other. And So basically, yeah, he's a compulsive liar. He's the darling of the team. Everyone loves him, looks up to him, but also kind of treats him like a kid. Is always kind of covering up for him. He's always crying about how, you know, he needs help with his articles. So, you know, the other teammates, you know, who've got their own articles to write, they're off helping Steven write his articles because he's always like, well, I'm gonna get killed if I don't turn this in on time.
Yeah.
They're going to bury me or whatever. So he's like very manipulative, emotionally manipulative piece of shit, basically, is who he was. Or is, sorry, he's still alive, unfortunately. Sorry, that's me. I should say
Oh,
that.
no.
But he's still,
no,
he's still alive.
he deserves a redemption. I mean, I'm like anybody, you know. And
No.
so, plus, he's had a kind of rough, I mean, up and down life after this, because I read that he, so between 2014 and 2018, he was married to writer Julie Hilden, and she contracted early onset Alzheimer's.
Shit.
And then died from it. So,
Oh my God.
Yeah, at the age of 49. So yeah, she was a little older than him, but yeah, it's just
Still,
that's sad. Yeah.
Yeah, I know. I'm not.
No, I know.
I'm not like he's terrible or whatever.
No.
You know, like he made up some stupid stories. The thing is, still, a lot of the stories he made up with weren't really that consequential when it comes to like.
Yeah, it wasn't like anything.
Or
yeah, I was gonna say nothing he really made up like swayed a presidential election or some kind of like foreign policy or anything. So yeah.
Yeah, they were just very colorful. So basically, he almost gets in trouble once from his old editor, Michael Kelly, who unfortunately was killed in Iraq in 2003 when he went to cover the Iraq quote war.
Yeah.
Which, you know, the Iraq war is very similar in nature to what's going on in Israel. It wasn't really war was just an invasion.
And he was the first journalist killed during Operation Iraqi Freedom. So yeah.
So that really sucks. And so he almost got caught from Michael Kelly because he wrote a piece. By the way, some of these pieces are still online today. You just type it in.
Yeah.
You'll find like a PDF. Whatever. So I read 2 of them. So he almost got caught by writing a story called Spring Breakdown, which was about young conservatives at the CPAC convention in, I think, 1997. And he just made up all these stories, saying that everyone spent most of their time in the hotel rooms getting drunk and stoned. They had like a bunch of mini bottles from like the mini fridge, like vodka and shit like that. They were, they brought in like a woman to basically sexually assault, and apparently he witnessed it and didn't do anything. So
that's where I'm like, okay, I understand. You know, a journalist needs to step back and not really be involved in the story per se. But if this were true, and he just sat there and let this poor woman be sexually assaulted, that's just wrong.
Just wrong morally, but also probably illegal as well.
Yeah.
And so he wrote this really, it was like a really long, like 2,000 or so word piece. I read it today, actually. It's about 4 or 5 pages long. And from reading it and knowing who he is, it's such an obvious story. Like, I mean, it just reads like fiction. Like it's structured in such a way that it's clearly amazing. Like even like the quotes he had the people say, it's like those quotes were like, you could tell that like someone had written those quotes. Like that wasn't something you would just hear in like you and I talking like a regular conversation.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like it actually read like someone sat down, and that's what kind of makes him so diabolical though. Cause like he literally just made up like everything. Like he even like would make up his own notes. Cause back then you would actually churn in your paper. Cause back then there was a thing called paper. It was a physical thing. And so you take a pen or a pencil, which was like a writing utensil, and you write things down. And then you turn that in, physical copies of your notes, to your editor. And apparently, I don't know, this is from the movie. I don't know if this is true in real life, but in the movie, he claims that there was a major loophole in the fact-checking system, at least in the New Republic. I'm not sure of other publications, where if the only source material you have is just your own notes, I guess they just like accept it, which that seemed kind of weird to me. Like, so if I'm just like crazy enough to just make up my own notes, you're just going to assume that I'm telling the truth? Like, I don't understand.
Well, we currently live in a world where a global power can kill innocent people, and then if there's something wrong about it, they get to investigate themselves about it.
True. Yeah, very
So
true.
it's a very similar system, except for in this system, thousands of people aren't mercilessly murdered. But yeah.
Yeah, I have no idea what you're talking about.
No, me either.
I don't think I do. I I'm not sure. Your sarcasm is it's very low right now. I can't hear it. No, I'm just going to throw out a clue here. At the end of the movie, they're standing next to a New Republic magazine with the title says "Zionism at 100." Just saying.
Yeah.
And, which is weird that they have that in the movie. You can see.
Yeah.
But and so that's the basic rundown. Is that he makes these fake stories. He sells them in the writing room. His pitches. He's the most exciting, one. Everyone else is kind of like, I got a story about ethanol subsidies. I got stuff that actually does matter, but no one cares about because it's not fun or entertaining. So he comes in kind of like a Hunter S. Thompson, but like more geeky, I guess, version of him. And he would always pitch these ridiculous stories, saying it's weird too, because like he would, as he's selling the pitch to the editors in order to allow him to finish the article and to eventually get it published, in the middle of those pitches, he's telling them that he lied to the people that he's talking about in order to get them to trust him to even interview him. So it's like, he's telling you guys that he's a liar,
Yeah. Which isn't a completely uncalled for thing when it comes to journalism, because people do lie all the time in journalism to subjects to get their story, which is on an ethical line, but sometimes it works and you get good information. Like recently with I can't remember her name, but the woman who went to a thing for a party for the Supreme Court and got information off the record on audio from some of the Supreme Court justices by pretending that she was like this ultra conservative woman, which she wasn't. So
yeah, that's right. Yeah, I saw a video about that on the Majority Report. I think with Sam Cedar talking. I know it's crazy. Talk about real news. That's a great. I'll never stop promoting that Majority Report. That's a great.
No, me either.
Really great news and commentary show. You're not going to find too many Stephen Glasses in that one. Hopefully.
No.
And if anything, you're going to have the anti-Stephen Glass, because there's a guy there named Matt Binder. I always call him Matt Binder for some reason.
Yeah.
He discovered that Jimmy Dore, the shill who used to work at the Young Turks and then became a right-winger, quote, became a right-winger to make more money, so he has his own
or as he says, he's a real liberal, not a anyways. So yeah.
Well, they always say that they go, I'm a classical liberal, which basically just means
he's a classical liberal, like Bill Maher.
Right. And then, I didn't leave the left left me, etc. That's that whole thing. But he had his own alt Twitter account called Libtard01 or something like that.
Yeah.
And Matt Bender noticed this profile was always, not always, but often the first person to like one of Jimmy Dore's posts on Twitter. He was always that's kind of strange. Why? Like, is this person just always like online and always can see when Jimmy Dore makes a post and he's the first one to like the post? It just seems kind of strange. And so he went and followed both profiles, and he noticed that they're always posting almost exactly at the same time. Either it was the first one first, and then it was Jimmy Dore, or it was Jimmy Dore first, and vice versa. And eventually he saw that Jimmy Dore had posted something from Italy, and then this other profile posted something too, and it was also from Italy. And then he's like, okay, that's interesting. And they're both in Italy at the same exact time. And then because their phone, like, I guess when you're like in a different country, you're like, it doesn't say T-Mobile, it might say some other company, because depending on where you're at in the world. Yeah. And so he realized, because at one point too, he even saw that there was like the Jimmy Dore like logo, like kind of like in the background, like you could barely see it, but you could make out that it was like the weird circle thing that he's got. And so then he went on this whole thing just exposing Jimmy Dore's alt account. Eventually Jimmy Dore had to like, I do have it, it's not a big deal, whatever, stuff like that.
Yeah.
But, so he's like the anti-Stephen Glass.
Yeah, I know.
But that's basically the long.
I know cell phones will do that. Like if like years ago when I was with AT&T, when I went into Canada, my phone service changed from AT&T to Rogers, which is one of their companies.
Oh.
So yeah.
Right. It's just interesting how that happens. And yeah, so basically that's the long and short of it, is that he emotionally manipulated his colleagues and his editors, even Chuck. You know, like in the movie he acts like Chuck Lane was this horrible person who was out to get him. Behind the scenes, Chuck was like diligently trying to defend him, like to find any piece of truth that might be part of the story, and just like assume that Steven just like panicked and was like trying to like invent like fake sources, like not because they were made up, but just to sort of like buttress the truth that was in the story. Like
Yeah.
It wasn't until like the very last moment when he realized, like, oh shit, this guy just made up everything from the story. Like,
yeah, because I mean, the thing is, people make mistakes. People can be duped. I mean, it makes sense like that. You know, this could have happened to somebody, but when you find out that the people that he's claiming duped him aren't even real, so it's like, yeah.
I mean, like, just think about that for a moment. Like, okay, like everybody has a panic move, sure. Like, you know, like, oh shit, man. But like, when you get to the point where you're having your own brother pose as another person, and you like create a phone number just for that. Well, no, didn't create. You just have your brother call from his phone number and pretending to be this other person, creating fake email addresses where you're emailing back and forth from the person that you're supposed to be talking to, but you're also that person who's replying to yourself as another person, creating a fake website, by the way, that was for AOL.members. Mind you, this was supposed to be a major software firm that he made up called Juked Micronics.
And here's another thing, like, kids. There used to be this thing called AOL.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Sorry.
So what would happen is they had their own separate internet, basically. Like, you could still get other like regular internet things in there, but there were certain sites that you could only get through AOL. So, you know, like, so you had to be an AOL member to actually read these websites and certain other, gimmicks that they had with being an AOL subscriber, and that was your way to get the internet. That was an internet service provider. So yeah.
Yeah, so AOL was interesting because it was like the first like app, if you will, like where everything was in one thing. Like, you know what I mean? Like before that, it was like you had to actually manually go to a website and like read the article or do whatever or search for things. With AOL, it was like you had email, you had like a chat rooms, you had like your friends list that you could talk to, and you had like websites, on the site itself. So it was like everything all in one. Now, we take that for granted, but back then that was kind of like that was not the normal thing. That was like a special thing back then. Like you actually had to have a subscription to AOL itself that costed money, and all that jazz. And so so he made up this fake web, and it was only after these guys from Forbes online magazine. Back then, online journalism was seen as like not very good, not really trustworthy. Now it's the opposite, where print is pretty much dead at this point, and it's all online now. For good, for better or worse, because sometimes it's not that great. Like, for example, online journals now they can just change headlines after it's already been published. They can actually even change what's in the article itself. So back then, you get a newspaper, someone's not going to come into your house and go and change the headline and cross it out and change, you know what I mean? So it's like you have the original there for posterity, because sometimes, they might just change like something small, like, oh, we misspelled a word there, or, we got this little fact wrong. But like nowadays, you can just change entire things. And then
the ethical thing to do is then say we've changed this since the original, publication, but half the time they don't do that anymore.
They don't.
So yeah, it's like, it's like one thing. It's like in a previous version of this article, we quoted Sesame as saying this, but in reality he said this. That's one thing to do, but when they just change what you said and don't acknowledge the fact that they fucked up, that's when it's kind of,
I mean, come on, Mike. I always tell the truth, right? I'm never being sarcastic or or see colorful language. And
I've looked over.
Anyways, that's basically.
I've looked over everything you've ever said, And the one thing that I found is definitely true is that there does appear to be a state in the Union called Nevada.
Yeah, I would hope so, because I don't want the states to secede from the Union again. But yeah. So this guy, the main thing that happened was he wrote an article called Hack Heb, and you can read that article online. You get a PDF or whatever. It's still, I think all of his articles are still up there.
Yeah.
And ironically, this one's not even nearly as bad as Spring Breakdown, but this was the one that nailed him. So sometimes that happens. You just, the thing that really isn't that big of a deal, for whatever reason, the stars align or whatever. And so he said that there was this, he met this kid named Ian Restel. He was like 15 years old. He was a big time hacker. He ended up hacking into the database of a major software firm called Juked Micronics. Already sounds fake. Like, just the name itself sounds fake. And he's like, the company decided to hire him as a security console instead of trying to take him down. And then he was at this meeting between him and his parents, his lawyers, versus the software firm's lawyers, to come to some sort of agreement about how much he wants to be paid. He wants all this shit. He wants a Miata, which I guess is a car. I'm not really a car person.
Yeah, it is.
Okay, he wants a lifetime subscription to both Playboy and Penthouse. Mind you, he's 15 years old at this point. And so if they agree to that, then they're distributing pornography to a child, which is pretty bad felony. But they were smart, like, no, like, we'll give you the money, and when you're old enough, you can go buy the porn and car yourself, whatever, and then he claims he was sitting there this whole time, jotting down his notes during this exchange. And then right outside the restaurant that they had this sort of dinner / meeting is a national hackers conference right next door. And so then he goes into the conference and everybody's cheering him and saying how great he is and like giving him a high five and all this shit. And they just go, yeah, it's great. They let him print out the story. This dude from Forbes online magazine, the editor there, calls him one of his employees named Adam Penenberg, I think is his name.
Yeah.
And he's like, hey, why didn't you get the story? Because he was like the hacker dude, like the computer guy or whatever. Like he did stories on that shit.
Yeah, and
like,
Adam Penenberg is played by Steve Zahn. And
oh God,
he's such a great actor. And I did not share any scenes with him, but he's soon to be in a movie that I'm a background actor in. So there's a movie coming out.
Maybe that's not.
Yeah. There's a movie coming out called Eenie Meenie, starring Samara Weaving and Carl Glusman, along with Marshawn Lynch and Andy Garcia and Steve Zahn and a bunch of other people. It'll be coming out sometime next year on Hulu, so look out for it, and then maybe you'll see me in the background.
Maybe.
Yeah.
That would be pretty awesome.
I did 5 days of work as a background talent on that movie, so yeah.
There you go. Did you get paid by the hour?
Yeah.
That's awesome. Shit, that's great. Yeah, even if you were doing anything, quote unquote, just sitting around and waiting.
The one day I was hardly ever on set, so I was just sitting waiting to be called. So yeah.
Damn. Yeah. That's awesome though. That could have been the reason why too, because you mentioned Steve Zahn before. Yeah. Maybe that was what also fogged my mind about this movie. And so yeah, Adam, he ends up, just doing some very minor research he goes to Yahoo search bar, because back then I don't even think Google was around at that. Maybe it was, but it wasn't like the key thing it is now. He typed in Juked Micronics and nothing came up at all. That's what gets me. Okay, so I don't understand this, Mike. So I understand he was entertaining. I understand, stuff like that. But nobody at New Republic had a computer or a search engine, and nobody at one point thought, let's just type in, just for shits and giggles, Juked Micronics, see what comes up. That's interesting. Nothing comes up, and it's supposed to be a major software firm.
Yeah, Google was founded in 1998. So
it's probably before, right when it started.
Mm-hmm.
And but I just thought that was really wild to me that nobody at New Republic thought of just doing a little bit of research and not just taking his. I guess maybe they just assumed that nobody.
In a lot of ways, it's even worse now, where you have such a small staff on publications that they're trying to get so many articles out that they don't have time to check every single thing. So they just assume that your author is telling the truth. So it's like,
oh my God.
Yeah, I think that's what happens a lot of the times. That's one of the reasons why it just sucks when you read all these things that are happening now, where like the LA Times like lays off half its staff or something like that, and you're just like, what's happening? It's like there, for sure that now things are gonna really, there's probably tons of Stephen Glasses out there now and are getting away with it.
God.
Yeah,
it's really bad, man. Like and like these like the liberal establishment. I don't mean liberal as in like the way people use liberal. I mean like the liberal establishment, scoffs at anyone. Like, all these people are so uneducated, they're so stupid, they don't like to read shit. But then these stories come out where it's like these people have been faking stories for years. And it's like, okay, well, you're not making your image look better.
Well, I mean, that's the thing. It's like, how can I trust the media when they allowed, 20 some articles out of 40 some at the New Republic to get published back in the 90s, So it's like,
but you had even less though. 27 out of 42.
Yeah.
That's how many articles, at least partially or entirely, were fabricated. For example, Hack Heaven was 100% fabricated. Not one part of that story was true. Nothing. He just made the entire. That's the other thing. Maybe they just assumed that nobody would be as that compulsive of a liar to handwrite fake notes as if you were at.
Yeah,
I mean, that is pretty impressive. Like,
I mean, and nowadays you do have people making up complete stories, but you can usually tell that they're fake if you take a few seconds, unless you're somebody that has a confirmation bias and just believes whatever the headline says, regardless of actually reading the thing. It's like I did a test back when I think it was when Trump and this is years ago, like when Trump and Hillary were running for president, and I put up an article that somebody had online that said the headline was Bernie Sanders still has a chance to be president, and this was after the election.
Yeah,
and then all these people commented underneath my post of it saying, in your dreams, Mike, and blah 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 and all this other stuff. Nobody clicked on the article because the article told you that it was fake and told you that it was a test to see how many people would do this. And that just shows you it's gotten worse since, in the last 8 years. It's just, horrible. Yeah. So.
Oh, it's gotten so bad. Yeah. Journalism is all but dead. I mean, I'm actually really, really scared, to be honest, because like now with AI taking over and fakes, like quote unquote, deep fakes used to be so obviously you just put like someone's head on someone else's head saying something stupid, like their mouth wasn't even moving in
it was kind of like a Clutch Cargo sort of situation before, but now it's
so like it was just obvious that it was fake. It was like just made for a little bit of fun to like maybe poke fun at someone or whatever, but now it's almost 100% accuracy. And the only shining light, only silver lining, there we go, the only silver lining to that is that a lot of people, but also a lot of people won't be able to do it. But a lot of people, as we get used to something, we sort of evolve alongside technology itself.
Yeah.
So me and you, we might be able to detect whether something's fake or not just by getting used to it. But other people, like you say, people are posting this bullshit AI art that's so obviously fake, but they're like, amen. Oh, I can't believe people won't reshare this. And it's like, obviously a fake. It's like,
and I mean, you can look at it like back on the topic of our podcast. Usually, it's like from like a special effects, like in movies, like early days of CGI, like Jurassic Park or something, still holds up to this day. And at the time, it was really great. But then as things went along, eventually it got to the point where everybody was able to recognize that, oh, that's completely CGI. And then you go and see a Marvel movie where it's just basically like, oh, it's, you've got Paul Rudd in front of green screen the whole fucking time. You know what I mean? It's like, it's just, and you can tell
that's
it's
a
fake.
Budgetary issue with that.
Yeah, and it's gotten to the point. But there are times now where you go back and Jurassic Park's a bad example for what I'm saying. But like if you go back and watch, like, say, the first Spider-Man movie, you can tell sometimes when they use CGI pretty obviously now, but at the time it looked amazing, when it first came out. Amazing, pun intended. But yeah,
I get it. Amazing.
Yeah.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, like, even Endgame, Avengers Endgame came out about 5 years ago. I was watching that recently, and even some of that I could tell that there was a little bit. But back when I first saw it, I was like,
that was
this
amazing.
is so
Yeah.
realistic. But
Yeah.
But it's still very, very good. But yeah, with things like this, I mean, now with ChatGPT able to write articles for you, I mean, I know supposedly they have mechanisms that can tell whether or not you're using ChatGPT, but like, how would you be able to do that? Because the whole point of that is that it takes all the information from the internet and then comes up with its own thing.
Yeah.
And there have been cases too where someone had written an article completely by themselves, did not use any AI technology to assist them, and then that got flagged as being used by ChatGPT. So it's like,
And I mean, and it's not to say, technology is a bad thing, because some of these things can be useful as like brainstorming. I almost said brainwashing, but that too. But brainstorming for things like, if you're like, what are some good ideas for an article? And it might pique your interest if you type it into something that'll be like, maybe you want to write about water, so it's just like, oh, okay. And then you look into it and you're like, oh yeah, there's a water crisis going on in Flint, I got to write an article, something like that, but not to have it write your whole article, so yeah. Or like when it comes to like, writing a screenplay or a poem or something like that, and you just be like, what, I've got this idea, like, can you help me kind of flesh it out a little bit? And then you take that and you flesh it out yourself, where you write your own dialogue and your own ideas, but it's kind of like collaborating with somebody. But if you have like, but if it gets to the point where like Netflix is having AI completely write an episode of Stranger Things or something, then you're going to completely notice it,
Yeah. And, they're probably going to start doing stuff like that, especially with everyone cutting, tightening their belts and, cutting staff and whatever.
Which I still don't get to this day where people are like, oh, this inflation thing, but it's actually like all these companies are making record profits, but they're not, but the only people that are getting the profit are the CEOs and the board, and all the people working like, like at Walmart or something, like the CEO and the board are getting all this money. And then, the poor lady that's your cashier at the store is not getting any kind of, compensation for the fact that the company's making all this money. Just stupid.
Yeah, a lot of these companies use inflation as an excuse. Then there's really actually no need. Like grocery stores doing that. Obviously
they use inflation, but they actually create the inflation. So it's like,
yeah, it's a perfect grift. It is. I mean, yeah, you figured it out. Like it's like, there you go. Like you're like Marx 2.0 now. Like you. Like all you gotta do is use ChatGPT to write an article. Describing why you're right.
So coming next week, I'm gonna we'll have a completely AI written episode where it's just us talking about this stuff. But...
Dude, no, we should do that. No, seriously, we'll just read it. Maybe not next week because it's your choice.
No, I know. We'll do it sometime soon. Yeah, maybe we'll do a whole episode, maybe an April Fool's episode where we just have the whole thing written by AI.
That would be good.
Yeah.
That would be good. God damn, man, that's a great idea.
Yeah.
That's the long and short of it. I mean, there's really not much to the movie other than what we talked about. More of a thriller. There's not a whole lot that happens in it,
Yeah, but it's very intense, and I think it has a lot of implications that are still relevant to today. When it comes to journalism and it comes to truth, and in politics and in journalism and stuff. It's very, not politics as much in the movie, but it actually does apply to politics now, where it's always been this way, where you just have, your White House spokesperson basically just lying straight to the journalists, and the journalists will then just publish it as without double checking things. And it's this whole, propaganda that we live in, where somebody says something, it gets published, and then that becomes the truth. And it's not necessarily true ever. And it's getting so much worse, where you've got like this AI shit and you got this other stuff online, especially, Facebook, as much as I hate to say it, is dying completely.
Yeah.
I use it a lot for, my social media aspect because of my age, I guess, where I'm just not, I am on TikTok and Twitter and Instagram and stuff, but I haven't figured out how to harness those as best as I do Facebook, but even Facebook from a year ago is like 100% better than Facebook of today. It's to the point where every other thing posted is somebody posting a stupid picture where it's like, you know, oh, there's this disabled vet who has like legs that are, you know, missing. And, you know, it's like he's holding a sign that says, you know, nobody will post this because, you know, why don't pictures like this go viral, you know? And it's just like, maybe because it's AI. But then you have things like that, or like I saw one today, like on my dad posted, where it was like the Vietnam War was 45 years ago today, and nobody's posting about it. And the fact that, you know, if you actually just think about that for a second, 45 years ago was 1978.
Right.
And so the war was well over by then.
Yeah, Vietnam ended in like 75, I think.
Yeah,
74.
So it's like, why would anybody be talking about that? And I've seen other things too. It's like, you know, today's the anniversary of D-Day and nobody's talking about it, and it's like completely a different month than when D-Day happened. You know, it's just this thing to get people to buy into this militarization love or militarism, and you know, and a lot of times this Christo-fascist, you know, way of looking at the world, where, you know, you've got these things where it's like nobody shares photos of Jesus anymore. You know, this photo isn't allowed on Facebook, but I'm sharing it now. And it's like, yeah, it's been shared over 4 million times, but yeah, it's not allowed anywhere, you know. It's like, but people will share it, or like, you know, say amen if you care about our military or something like that. And it's usually just AI Facebook pages that are completely run by AI. Half of the comments underneath it are AI, but then you get somebody that's older, like my dad or my mom or somebody, that'll fall into it and repost it, you know, and you're just like, come on, people, take 2 seconds to use your brain and realize that you're just falling into propaganda.
Yeah, they call those AI slop channels or pages or whatnot. Because, yeah, the whole thing is just generated by AI. And the thing is, too, it's kind of like with the bot followers. So their idea is that if they could project like engagement, then like real people are going to then show up, because like, oh, well, there's so many comments on here. Obviously, this is real, you know, type of thing. So it's like, it's meant to sort of bolster. It's like meant to prop up something that's not even a real house. Like you knock it down and everything just falls down type of thing.
Yeah.
Like, it looks like a house, but there's just nothing holding it together.
It's like a movie set. It's like a movie set where you've just got, you know, you open up the door to the house and there's nothing inside.
Yeah, I mean, that's exactly it. And I saw one too the other day. I forgot what it was, but it was just something bizarre. Talk about Facebook too dying. So today, this is totally off topic, but today, I'm not even going to mention the word because I just thought it was terribly irresponsible. So I follow a bunch of meme pages or whatever, you know, and then one of them said, had a picture of like, there's like a picture where there's like one guy sitting at a table and he's like blue, and the other guy's orange, but like you can only see like a silhouette of their bodies type of thing. Like you don't actually see them.
Yeah.
You just see like what their body shapes would look like.
Mm-hmm.
And then the blue one said, typing in so-and-so such word into a search engine, and the guy just looks like normal or whatever. And then the guy that's on fire, or it's supposed to be, you know, he's glowing orange, typing in such phrase into Facebook, and then that's supposed to be like the bad version of the thing. And so all these idiots online on Facebook were typing in the phrase, and they're like, oh, I don't know what else I expected. I probably shouldn't have done that. And so what it is that the phrase, I guess, is like a code word that people look up to find CSAM, child sexual abuse material.
Oh, geez.
To bypass the algorithm. And so they were typing it in, and they got a warning from Facebook basically telling them like, this search might be like part of that.
Yeah.
Like, you know, don't go any further or we're going to call a cops on. Well, they didn't say that, but that was kind of implied, you know.
It's like,
why would you do that?
There's so many evil people on there, and those things like that, you can report it all you want, but Facebook won't do shit about it. I mean, you can have people write online saying that you should kill a whole group of people, and somehow that's not a hate hate speech. It's just the stupidest thing. It's like sometimes if back in the day, I don't know if it still is, but if you said something bad about a whole group of people, it wasn't considered hate speech unless you said it about a specific member of that group.
Right.
Which makes no sense to me. When I think that if you're saying, oh, you should murder all people with blue eyes, that's not bad. But only if you say, oh, you should murder Michael E. Cullen II because he has blue eyes, then that's hate speech. That doesn't make sense.
They probably think it's because it's easier to single out one person than it is to single out every member of that group. But still, you're still advocating for murder. So that's make any sense that you would say like, oh, like, you know what it is? It kind of reminds me. I know we're like totally off on a tangent here, but like that's fine.
But it's all connected to the whole lying of journalism, because in a way, social media used to be a good source of media of news and stuff, but now it's not at all. So
right, and so it kind of reminds me. There's a lot of controversy going on around different streaming apps.
Yeah,
like live streaming, like Twitch, and now there's a newer one called Kick. It's really not that new, but Kick is like way worse than Twitch. And what it is, and the reason why it reminded me is that there seems to be a mentality among a lot of people, especially those who are online a lot, is that they somehow think that if they commit a crime that's so blatantly in public that somehow that makes it not committing a crime, because I guess in their mind, they're like, well, what idiot would do something so brazen in public? Therefore, it's not a crime. I'm like, you can murder someone in public doesn't mean it's not a crime just because he did it in public. Like, but they seem like to think that they're like these guys. They were like, this one dude, his whole thing was that he would what do they call it? Where you would meet someone online, like you would just go through a thing and like their webcam would show up and you would just like talk to them, like almost like Russian roulette kind of thing.
Oh yeah,
and
it's like a
he would just
I think it's called chat roulette.
Yeah, something like that. And so that's what he would do all day. That was his whole stream, is that he would do this like 8 hours a day, and he would just do this. And the reason why is because he would try to convince, if it was a woman, to convince them to like take clothes off or show them boobs or whatever type of thing, and then he would have people in his Discord server take screenshots of that and then start selling those pictures or peddling those pictures on through the Discord. But he was doing this to several minors, and like one girl literally said she was 15. Then you could see for like a split second that he heard her, but then he immediately goes, "You said 18, right?" And she's like, yeah, sure. He's like, okay, great. So it's like pretending like that.
Yeah, and I mean the thing is, it's like ignorance doesn't like justify the fact that you still committed a crime. It's
a felony.
Yeah,
like, a felony, literally on live stream.
But we live in a world where we have a felon running for president, and people think that that's a good thing. That they support him more because he is a convicted felon. So.
Exactly. Yeah, it gives them street cred. They're like, yeah, man, our guy's a felon. Isn't that awesome? By the way, Law and Order is awesome. Okay.
I mean, what? I saw talking about what you're saying here too. I mean, I saw a thing like that. This guy back in the earlier days of like webcamming and stuff, webcam online and stuff like that, was doing something like that with minors, where he would go into this social media page of some sort and pose as like this, hot Justin Bieber looking kid or whatever, and named Captain Obvious. That was his actually screen name. And then he would just talk to these girls that were like, as young as like 12 and stuff like that, and get them to like flash him and do other things. And then he would just like not talk to them for a while and then come back, and he's like, but they thought it was just on the webcam that it would disappear, that it wasn't a photo. But he was taking video or stills of this as it was happening, and then he would come back and threaten them and say, show me more, or I'm going to share this with all your friends,
or pay me, or give me money.
It's like basically like the first major sextortion campaign. And it turned out that he had done this to like over 350 young girls in the United States, Canada, and Great Britain.
That's insane.
Yeah, he ended up getting he got 105 years in prison for it. So
that's wild, man. That's crazy.
I mean, he did release like what got him, like one of the major things that got him is he did end up releasing, and then this girl found out photos of her on some website, and she was only like, I think she was only 16 or something when the photos were taken, or younger, and so it was distribution of child pornography, and I guess he did it to other women. And at the time of the episode of this show that I watched where I was talking about, it's called Web of Lies. It's an older show that used to be on like Investigation Discovery. And they, it's just that there are people at that time that are still finding out to this day that they were being taken advantage of this way. So,
that's crazy.
Yeah.
That's how scary this shit is. Like, so he produced and distributed it. So that's like a double crime. Mm-hmm. My God. But then, I know this is all kind of related though, because it's all about the war between truth and falsehood, and clearly falsehood's winning.
Mm-hmm. I mean, it's sad. We have a thing like where there was a presidential debate recently, and I'm not going to get into the problems with our current president and his performance at it, but the former president and his performance, pretty much almost everything he said was a lie, and people defend him.
Like everything.
They say, well, that's how can you prove that's a lie? And it's like, well, we have proof. But when you get to the point, though, when it comes to journalism, though, when you get to the point where people can't trust journalists because of things like what happened in Shattered Glass, they won't trust facts that are true when it comes to journalism. So it becomes the whole like boy who cried wolf type thing, and nobody's going to believe you when the world is collapsing around you. So yeah,
it's just like it's the whole thing where it's like the liberal establishment can, get mad and, all they want about like, oh, these Hicks they don't want to read. They don't want, now I'm doing the Hick voice, but whatever.
Yeah.
They don't want to read or learn. Like, you guys lie though, too. Like you're snobby for one thing. Nobody likes a snob. That's one thing right there. And it's something you should know off the bat, but apparently you don't. But people don't like snobs unless they're other snobs. So you're just jerking off to each other or jerking. I can't talk today. Whatever. You're jerking each other off, not jerking off to each other. Well, I guess we could be doing both.
Maybe a little of both. But little column A, a little column B.
It's like a little bit of both. Sorry. And speaking of Operation Iraqi Freedom, the New York Times, Washington Post, all of these major liberal in the official term of the word, not the way we use the term liberals, and certainly not the way your average conservative uses the word liberal. I'm talking the specific way it's
I gotcha.
used in like political. I know, I'm just trying to be clear, but like clarification. There you go. And they all repeated the lies that the Bush administration. They said, oh, they got Saddam's making chemical weapons. They got yellow cake. They got uranium, etc. And these major, like New York Times, it's the greatest magazine paper of all time. And Washington Post, and all these other, probably even New Republic. I don't know, but I would bet there's probably an article in there somewhere that just.
Oh, I'm sure. It was like every at the time it was almost encouraged to be Islamophobic. It was almost encouraged to believe anything that was said by the president. It was encouraged to do that, and that never happened again at all. Oh wait, it's currently happening right now as we speak, where people are convincing us that things that never happened. 30 or 40 beheaded babies that never existed.
Nope.
A complete article in the New York Times that every single thing about it was actually refuted by the people that were being talked about in the article, these like hostages and victims of the of October 7th. But it's just so stupid that what happens then is a lot of times with news information is the first thing you hear is what you believe. Even you could be told a million times that it's wrong, but once you hear it, and once it's stated, out of the mouth of Lester Holt on NBC News or something, you believe it. It's just the way it is.
It is. That's why retractions don't matter. That's why, we actually were like, for example, Biden. Speaking of Biden, one of the people that was present. Well, I don't know if he was very much present at the debate, but his body was present at the debate. His physical body was there and standing. Yes,
Yes.
that was there. But Biden said, not during the debate, but Biden said that he himself saw the pictures of the beheaded babies.
Yeah.
That someone showed him. And then when it turned out to be false, he goes, "Oh, I didn't see it. Someone told me and I just took their word for it." Well, wait a minute. How would you? Okay, so now we have two discussions. Either you're a complete liar, which you are, or you do have dementia, because there's not a single person on the planet who would see pictures of beheaded babies and not remember that. Like, I'm sorry.
It's like I can I can understand, not remembering a simple thing like, oh, I don't remember if that restaurant served Coke or Pepsi, but that's different than something like beheaded babies, So.
You don't go like, that one just slipped my mind. I don't know. No, that's you're either lying or you do have dementia. None of those scenarios are good, mind you. And probably a little bit of both, like you said, column A and a little bit of column B,
Yeah.
But with Trump, because this is all connected to journalism, because that's the other thing. CNN decided to have a fact checker after the debate, the next day or so. No one cares.
I mean, and having a fact checker after the debate is like those things where the guy talks really fast at the end of a medicine ad where it tells you all the side effects. Like you've got this glossy thing with somebody running through a field and telling you how great you're going to feel when you take this medicine, but then at the end it tells you, it may kill you. But but you don't hear that because it's so fast, and that's basically what happened with the fact checking. Nobody was staying up to watch the fact checker. That's a new show I'm going to create called the Fact Checker. No, I'm joking.
And that's one of those things that I wish people in the liberal establishment would understand. I just don't think they can, because it's like all of us to some degree are limited by our own experiences and perspectives. No matter how hard we try to branch out, be open-minded, there's some degree that we're just not able to understand what someone else is thinking or saying. And the liberal establishment just cannot understand that most people in the country are not policy wonks. They're not interested in all these little nitty-gritty details. Oh, you see that Lester Holt said that really cool side of that source, and that little nuanced point. No one cares about that stuff except for like me and you and like 10 other people in the country. Like nobody cares. So it's like if you have someone on debate who's going like, and then you got another guy who is saying a bunch of bullshit, but he's saying it with confidence, and there's no fact checkers until after the debate is over, most people are like, oh, maybe there is such a thing as post-birth abortion. I mean, he sounded pretty confident when he said that. No, there's no such thing as a post-birth abortion, because the whole point of an abortion is that it's before birth.
Yeah, because a post-birth abortion is murder.
Yeah. And he's like, they do it sometimes in the 9th month or even right after the baby's born. They go, well, what are we going to do about it? And we'll just, I guess we'll just figure out what to do with the baby afterwards, which means that they'll kill the baby.
Yeah.
And Joe Biden, he goes, everything he said was a lie right there, but doesn't then explain why it's a lie. It's like,
it's so, we could go on and on about this stuff.
No, I'm sorry.
No, it's okay. Me too. I'm falling into this, but back to the topic at hand. I think that this movie is very, very important for people to watch because of the things we've been talking about, and just make sure you do your. I mean, I hate the do your own research type thing, but but sometimes you need to do your own research on things, and you need to not believe everything at face value. And this is a good example of why it's sadly getting worse, in my opinion, and hopefully it gets better. But it's also another reason that you should, maybe start to support journalists that you trust. Go to their Patreons, go to their blogs or whatever, and subscribe to whatever they have. Whoever it is that you actually trust, that you think can be trusted. I mean, sure, sometimes these people might write something wrong, but a lot of times the trusted people will correct themselves and explain how they fucked up. It's
right.
And they can't do this for free. And the sad thing is that they can't do this for free, but Uncle Jimmy living on a farm in the middle of nowhere can, and he's going to convince you to, kill someone because he thinks that they're a child predator, even though they're not, and you're going to believe him just as equally as you believe somebody from the New York Times because of lies and stuff. It's sad that that's what happens, but you should be able to trust somebody from an actual publication or more than you do Uncle Jimmy living on the farm, so it's just the way it is.
Right. But yeah, now it's been, the playing field has been, quote, leveled, but not necessarily a great, No,
and it's a sad world we live in. And if you have any suggestions of how we can change this and help this out, let us know. But like I said, the best way is to support people that you trust. People that I trust are like the Humanist Report or the Rational National or Majority Report or, I don't know, like Bituation Room. People like that actually do things that are good research journalism and on a daily basis. But then there's also, people that do long form investigative journalism that really need your help, and look for them and find them and reach out to them and tell them you support them and stuff. Whatever you can do that'll help support them in some monetary or moral way, So yeah, it's
exactly. Amen, brother.
Amen.
Sorry.
Weehoo. And
Speaking of, I would like to plug a journalist that I think should get more traction.
Yeah.
He can be a jerk sometimes to me. His name is Bill Weinberg. EILL space WEINBERG.
Yes.
He runs a website called Counter Vortex. I'm not sure if it's .com or .org, but it's called, you just type in Counter Vortex, one word.
Okay.
It'll show up. He does very well researched journalism. He's very fact oriented. I mean, he's very almost to a degree where almost like OCD like, but like that's good. Because when you're talking about like important, again, because like the Stephen Glass show, okay, like he's writing bullshit stories about hackers and CPAC and young conservatives. Still bad. But imagine having a Stephen Glass who's writing stories about war and you know what I mean? It's shit like
war and governmental policy and stuff like that. That would be a lot worse, like talking about, just flat out lying about what Congress is doing, or flat out lying about, what you're even on a local level, flat out lying about what your mayor or your city council is doing, That's not the type of people you want, So
right. And so you could have a guy like that who's just like totally just like dividing people by the same just factually wrong shit. But Bill Weinberg is a good one. Counter Vortex. He's also got a podcast on SoundCloud called the Counter Vortex Podcast. He does an episode, I think, once a week, maybe once a month. I'm not sure. He's good. I just want to get him the traction because he's kind of lesser known, and he's not really. He's like in his 60s, early 60s, I think, by now. So he doesn't really know much about like the current like streaming and all that kind of stuff. He's kind of like, unfortunately, kind of left in the lurch a little bit, even though he's really good at what he does. But
the good thing you can do is look for people like him out there and support them. That's what you got to do to build their audiences.
Yeah, and he used to be doing show. I mean, he did create a website a long time ago called the World War IV Report, and then he changed it to Counter Vortex. I don't know, like 5 or 10 years ago or something. And he did a show for WBAI in New York City. It was a public radio show. He did what's called the Moorish Science Radio Crusade, I think was the name of the show.
Mm-hmm.
And then it was very political, very left wing. Political.
I'll try to share some of his stuff in the notes too, so people can find him. So,
sure.
Yeah.
And so he was doing really important work even way back in the 90s. I still have some old episodes from like 94 that were archived, and he had actually, during the Civil War in former Yugoslavia, he had actually somehow managed to patch in some people from Yugoslavia to talk to other people that like they weren't like supposed to be like communicating with each other, and somehow he found a way via the radio station to get them to basically talk to each other, and like that actually like helped out, I think, like save some lives or some shit, like so that was like Because like I think they were supposed to be like it was just really hard to communicate with people back then. Like you just like the phone lines were cut and shit a lot of times, and they were probably being surveilled as well, and stuff like that. And so yeah, pretty cool dude. Can be a jerk sometimes to me for some reason, but that's whatever.
That's a caveat we don't need to get into. So yeah, but
I'm just saying.
But yeah, it's.
But then that's just my point, though, that I like him enough to promote him, even though he is a jerk to me.
Yeah,
so.
It's all good. So yeah, if I definitely say make sure you check out I'm sure you already have watched Shattered Glass if you're listening to this, but it's a good thing to show people about good journalism. I mean, it's right up there. I mean, not good journalism, about bad journalism and how things should be good, But I mean, also check out things like Spotlight or All the President's Men, stuff like that. Those really good, movies about journalism that may make you want to get into it and actually be somebody that's honest about journalism, Before we wrap things up here, let's take a listen to this fun song that Sesame recorded about the movie.
But I do find myself wondering, why would a major software company put their website where only AOL members can access it as opposed to the entire web?
That doesn't seem credible to me. All I know is I was here. All of us were right here.
Are you sure you're in the right building?
Yes, we're sure.
Why's that?
I have to say, Stephen, this looks very suspicious to me.
All I know is I was here.
So, quite frankly, this looks like a real mess.
The conference was right here.
Looks like a site that was created for
You know, this is not right, Chuck. Okay, I feel really attacked. You're my editor. You're supposed to support me. You're taking their word against mine. You're supposed to support me.
Those guys are going to have all this too. They're going to dig through the records in that office building. Okay, I'm sure they have surveillance cameras, and they're going to check them.
I didn't do anything wrong, Chuck.
I really wish you'd stop saying that.
So, yeah. Any final thoughts here?
No, I'm all good.
Okay, so
I'm about to check out like Stephen Glass, my security card. I can't come back if I leave. So
no.
So
just be sure to also check out our website, all2real2.com. There's no lies there at all, and but from there you can find all of our social media, our TeePublic, and our Patreon for ways to help us out. Be sure to share the show with your friends and give us a 5-star review wherever you can on like Apple Podcasts or Spotify or what have you. And just remember that I love you. There does appear to be a state in the union called Nevada. Sesame loves you. And until next time, bye-bye.
Thanks for listening to All Too Real 2 podcast, a Cullen Park production. Produced and edited by Michael E. Cullen II. Music by Matthew Haas. Subscribe and share the show. Visit us at cullenpark.com.